The rest of the story. Mokusatsu. You might want to remember that word. The age of nuclear warfare began with a screaming headline in the New York Times. Japan officially turns down Allied surrender ultimatum. And it was those words which triggered the first atomic bomb blast ever fired in anger and sealed the doom of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. But this is the rest of the story. Germany had fallen. Japan's Emperor Hirohito and Prime Minister Suzuki realized that for their nation as well, the end was near. Above all, the Emperor wished to spare Japanese civilians the agony of an Allied invasion. But whom would they approach with a proposal of surrender, and how? Now it's July 26, 1945. The Allies opened the door. Meeting in Potsdam, American and British leaders formulated a surrender ultimatum to Japan. But it seems the Allies were as confused as the Japanese regarding the proper procedure for notifying the enemy, the proof of which is that instead of contacting the Japanese government directly or passing the Potsdam Declaration along through a neutral government, the Allies simply broadcast their ultimatum on shortwave radio, hoping the Japanese would be eavesdropping. What I'm saying is Japan never received an official surrender ultimatum from the Allies. But the Japanese were indeed monitoring our radio broadcasts, and they did transcribe and study the Potsdam Declaration. At first, the term unconditional surrender worried them, and yet so eager were some Japanese leaders to lay down their weapons that they even began to accept that. Hirohito observed that the phrase was mentioned only once in the declaration, and then only in connection with the Japanese military. Foreign Minister Togo added that the overall framework of the ultimatum did not really suggest an unconditional surrender after all. Well, the consensus seemed to be this. Japan now had an opportunity to achieve a peace with honor, so they'd better not blow the chance. All that remained was some official word from the Allies. Through the Russian government, it was presumed. Prime Minister Suzuki was told, if reporters question you on the matter, play it down, don't elaborate. So in his next press conference, the Prime Minister said, Mokusatsu. No comment. Mokusatsu. No comment. And that's precisely what he meant to say. And still less than 2 weeks later, the Japanese port cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were incinerated. What went wrong? Well, hindsight makes it easy. Looking back, historians concur that the Japanese were ready to surrender in July of 1945. All they were waiting for was an official communication of the Potsdam Declaration. But such a communication was never made because an American interpreter, reading the Japanese Prime Minister's quote in that nation's newspapers, interpreted the word mokusatsu not as reluctant to comment, but rather as an outright rejection of the Allied surrender ultimatum. You see, there's another meaning of the word mokusatsu in Japan's dictionary. It's the word ignore. Thus was the salvation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki lost in the translation of a single word. Now you know the rest of the story.